Her true story from Oregon. They put her in a home, so she took $2.3 million and vanished. Then I was folding a towel when I heard the lock turn. Not the front door, the basement door. The one they told me to stop using because of my knees. The one they put a keypad on. A keypad they did not give me the code for. I stood there in the laundry room with that towel half folded and I listened. My son Michael was down there. I could hear him moving boxes. I could hear the crinkle of paper. I could hear his phone buzz. And then his voice low, like he was standing inside a closet. I am 71 years old. I have lived in this house for 38 years. I raised 3 children in this house. I buried my own mother's ashes in the garden out back. I know the sound of every floorboard. And I know when my own son is lying to me. He had been lying for months, maybe years. I just did not want to know. Let me start at the beginning, because if I do not start at the beginning, I will start crying and I will not be able to finish. My name is Diane. I am from Medford, Oregon originally, but I have lived in Lake Oswego for most of my adult life. My husband Bill and I bought this house in 1986. It was a fixer-upper. Bill was a contractor. He rebuilt the kitchen with his own hands. He put in the bay window where I used to sit and watch the kids ride their bikes down the street. He died 4 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. 6 weeks from diagnosis to the funeral.
I held his hand in the hospice center while he took his last breath, and I remember thinking, okay, this is the worst thing that will ever happen to me. I was wrong. The worst thing was still coming, and it was coming from inside my own blood. After Bill died, I did not know what to do with myself. We had been married 42 years. I met him at a diner in Eugene when I was 21. He was wearing a flannel shirt, and he had dirt under his fingernails, and he made me laugh so hard I spit out my coffee. That was Bill. Rough hands, soft heart. He left me the house, free and clear. He left me a life insurance policy worth about $800,000. He left me his IRA, which was another $450,000. And he left me the rental property on Hawthorne Street in Southeast Portland. A little 2-bedroom bungalow we bought in 1999 for $117,000. By the time Bill died, it was worth almost $900,000. So I was not rich, but I was comfortable. I was safe. I was a widow with a paid-off house and a rental property and enough money to live without fear. My daughter Karen is the oldest. She is 48. She lives in Bend with her husband Tom and their 2 kids. Karen was always my practical one, the one who balanced my checkbook when Bill got sick, the one who flew down from Seattle before she moved to Bend and sat with me in the oncology waiting room. She held my hand during the biopsy.
She held my hand during the chemo consult. She held my hand when the doctor said there was nothing more they could do. I remember looking at her across the hospital bed and thinking, thank God I have her. Thank God I have at least one child who will take care of me when I am old. My son Michael is the middle child. He is 45. He lives in Portland with his wife Rachel and their 3 kids. Michael was always my sensitive one. He cried at his high school graduation. He cried at Bill's funeral. He calls me every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, or he used to. He used to tell me he loved me at the end of every call. Mom, you are my rock, that is what he said. Mom, I do not know what I would do without you. He said it so many times I stopped hearing it. That is the thing about words. You hear them so often they turn into air, and then one day you realize they were never real to begin with. They were just sounds he made while he was waiting for you to die. My youngest is Amy. She is 39. She lives in San Francisco. She does not have children. She has a girlfriend named Jess, who I actually love more than I love Amy sometimes. Amy is the one who got out. She went to college back east, and she never really came back. She calls me on my birthday and on Christmas. She sends me nice presents, but she's not close. She never was. I used to think it was because she was the baby, and she resented being the baby. Now I think she saw something early, something I was too blind to see.
Amy is the only one who warned me, but she did it in that Amy way, indirect, sarcastic. She said, Mom, don't let them put you in a home. I laughed. I said, who would put me in a home? She just looked at me.
Then she changed the subject. So after Bill died, I was alone. The house felt huge and empty. I would wake up at 3 in the morning and walk from room to room just to hear the floors creak. I started watching a lot of television. I started eating dinner at 4:30 in the afternoon because I did not know what else to do with the hours. Then Michael started coming over more. He would bring the kids. His oldest is Lily, she is 14. Then Caleb, who is 11. Then little Zoe, who is 7. Zoe would climb into my lap and play with my necklace, my mother's necklace, a small gold locket with a picture of my parents on their wedding day. Zoe loved that locket. She would open it and close it, open and close it. And I would think, this is what life is about. This is why you go through the hard years. For this, for the little fingers on the gold locket. Michael started talking to me about money, not in a direct way, in a soft way. He said, "Mom, you have a lot of assets tied up in real estate." He said, "Mom, you are 71 years old. Do you really want to deal with tenants and toilets and roof repairs?" He said, "Mom, let me help you. Let me manage the Hawthorne property. I will take care of everything. You just collect the rent checks." I said, okay. He was my son. He was a good boy.
He cried at his father's funeral. I signed a piece of paper giving him power of attorney over the rental property. That was the first mistake. But it was not the last. The last mistake was much, much bigger. Rachel started coming over too, Michael's wife. She would bring homemade lasagna and bottles of red wine. We would sit in the living room and watch old movies. She would tell me about her mother, who had died 5 years earlier from a stroke. She would say, "Diane, you are like a second mother to me." She would hold my hand when she said it. Her hand was always warm. I remember thinking how lucky Michael was to have found her, how lucky I was to have her as a daughter-in-law. Rachel was a real estate agent. She sold high-end homes in the West Hills. She drove a white Mercedes. She wore expensive jeans and gold earrings that looked like tiny leaves. She was beautiful and she was kind, and she was lying to my face every single day. It started with little things. The rent checks from the Hawthorne property started coming late. Then they stopped coming altogether. I asked Michael about it. He said the tenants were going through a divorce and they were behind. He said it was fine. He said he would handle it. I asked him for the property manager's phone number. He said he had switched to a new management company and he would get me the contact information. He never did. I let it go. I did not want to be a difficult mother. I did not want to be the kind of old woman who questions her son. I wanted to be easy. I wanted to be loved. So I let it go. Then Karen got involved. My daughter, the one who held my hand in the oncology waiting room. She called me one night and said, "Mom, I think you should sell the house." She said, "You are rattling around in that big place by yourself." She said you could get a nice condo near me in Bend. She said you could watch the kids grow up. She made it sound so warm, so logical, so loving. I told her I would think about it. I thought about it for 3 months. I walked through every room of that house. The kitchen where Bill taught me how to make beef stew. The backyard where the kids had a swing set that is now rusted and overgrown with ivy. The bedroom where I woke up next to the same man for 42 years. I could not sell it. I told Karen no. She said, "Okay, Mom, I understand." But her voice was different, colder, like a door had closed somewhere inside her. That was the first time I saw her true face, just for a second. Then it was gone. 6 months after Bill died, I started having problems with my hands. Arthritis. My doctor called it osteoarthritis. My fingers swelled up like little sausages. I could not open jars. I could not button my blouse. I could not grip the steering wheel without pain. Michael noticed. He was always noticing things. He said, "Mom, you should not be driving." He said, "Mom, you should not be living alone." He said, "Mom, come stay with us for a while. Just until you get your strength back." I cried when he said that. I cried because I was tired and scared and lonely, and I wanted someone to take care of me. I wanted to be the grandmother who lives with the family and helps with homework and bakes cookies on Sunday afternoons. I wanted that so badly I could taste it. So I moved in with Michael and Rachel and the kids. I packed a suitcase. I packed my medications. I packed my mother's locket. I locked the front door of my house, and I did not know I was walking away from it forever. Michael said he would take care of the house. He said he would check on it every week. He said he would make sure the heat stayed on in the winter and the pipes did not freeze. I believed him. He was my son. He cried at his father's funeral.
Their house is in the West Hills. It is a big, modern place with floor-to-ceiling windows and a kitchen island the size of my first apartment. Rachel had decorated everything in gray and white. It looked like a magazine. It did not look like a home. But I told myself I would get used to it. I told myself this was the next chapter. I was wrong. It was the last chapter, and it was a horror story. The first few weeks were fine. Zoe would crawl into bed with me in the morning. She would whisper, "Grandma, wake up." Lily would show me her TikTok videos. Caleb would ask me to help him with his math homework, even though I could barely see the numbers anymore. I felt useful. I felt loved. Then things started to change.
Slowly at first, then all at once. Rachel stopped talking to me at dinner. She would sit at the table and scroll through her phone while the rest of us ate. If I asked her a question, she would give me one-word answers. Michael started working late, every night. He would come home after the kids were in bed and go straight to the home office and close the door. I could hear him on the phone. Low voice, fast words. I could not make out what he was saying, but I could hear the tone. It was the tone you use when you are talking about money, when you are talking about something you do not want anyone else to hear. I started to feel like a ghost in that house. I would stand in the kitchen and no one would see me. I would say good morning and no one would answer. I would make a pot of coffee and Rachel would pour it down the sink and make a fresh pot because she said I made it too weak. She said it right in front of me. She did not whisper. She did not say it to Michael when I was not in the room. She looked at me and she said, "Diane, the coffee is too weak. I am going to make a new pot." She stopped calling me Mom. She stopped calling me Diane. She just started sentences without my name, like I was not a person anymore, like I was furniture. Then Michael sat me down in the living room. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Zoe had a dance recital that night and I was excited to go. Michael closed the sliding glass door. He sat across from me on the gray couch.
He said, "Mom, we need to talk about your health." I said, "What about my health?" He said, "Your hands are getting worse. Your memory is not what it used to be. You left the stove on twice last week." I said, "I did not leave the stove on." He said, "You did, Mom. Rachel saw it." I did not leave the stove on. He looked at me with this face, this soft, pitying face, the face you make when you are about to put a dog down. He said, "Mom, we think you need more care than we can give you." I knew what he was saying. I knew it in my bones. I just did not want to hear the words, so I made him say them. I said, "What are you talking about, Michael?" He said, "There is a place, a really nice place. It is called Riverbend Assisted Living. It is in Tualatin. It is close to us. We can visit you every day." I said, "I am not going to a home." He said, "It is not a home, Mom. It is an assisted living facility. There is a difference." I said, "I am not going. I am staying here. I am helping with the kids. I am baking cookies. I am Zoe's grandmother." He said, "Mom, please, do not make this harder than it has to be." That was the moment. That was the crack in the wall. Not the final break, just the first hairline fracture. I should have left then. I should have called Amy. I should have called a lawyer. I should have walked out that door and never looked back. But I did not, because I still believed he loved me. I still believed Rachel was just stressed. I still believed I was the problem. That is what they do to you. They make you believe you are the problem. They make you believe you are too old, too weak, too confused to know what is happening to you. And you believe them because you raised them, because you changed their diapers, because you sat up with them when they had fevers, because you love them. And love is a trap. Love is the oldest trap in the world. I went to Riverbend for a tour. Michael drove me. Rachel stayed home with the kids. The place smelled like bleach and boiled vegetables. The hallways were beige. The residents sat in wheelchairs in front of a television that was playing a channel no one was watching. An old woman with white hair was crying in the corner. A nurse was talking to her in a loud, slow voice, like she was deaf and stupid. The nurse said, "It is okay, Betty. It is time for your pudding." The old woman kept crying. She did not want pudding. She wanted to go home. I knew that without her saying it. I could see it in her eyes.
the same eyes I would see in my own reflection 6 months later. Michael squeezed my hand. He said, "See, Mom, it is nice, it is clean." I looked at him. I said, "I am not moving here." He said, "Okay, Mom, we will figure something else out." But his face did not match his words. His face said, "We are not figuring anything out." His face said, "This is already decided." His face said, "You just do not know it yet." 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was addressed to me at Michael's address. It was from a law firm in Portland.
I opened it in the kitchen while Rachel was at the sink. I read the first paragraph and my hands started shaking so badly I dropped the paper on the floor. Rachel picked it up. She looked at it. She did not say anything. She just handed it back to me and walked out of the room. The letter said that Michael had filed for guardianship over me. It said he was claiming I was incapacitated. It said he was claiming I could not make decisions for myself. It said there would be a hearing in Multnomah County Court in 2 weeks. The letter was 5 pages long. It listed all the ways I was supposedly failing: leaving the stove on, forgetting to take my medication, wandering outside in my nightgown. None of it was true. None of it. But it did not matter, because Michael had a lawyer, and I did not. Because Michael had Rachel, and I was alone. Because Michael had been planning this for months, maybe years, and I had been folding towels and believing in love like a fool. I called Karen, my daughter, the one who held my hand in the oncology waiting room. I told her about the letter. There was a long silence on the phone. Then she said, "Mom, you have to understand that Michael only wants what is best for you." I said, "He is trying to take away my rights." She said, "He is trying to keep you safe." I said, "Karen, listen to me. I am not incapacitated. I am not losing my memory. I am old and my hands hurt, but I am still me. I am still your mother." She said, "I know, Mom, but you have to trust us."
"We love you." I said, "If you loved me, you would help me." She said, "I am helping you." Then she said she had to go. Tom was calling her for dinner. She said she would call me tomorrow. She did not call tomorrow. She did not call for 2 weeks. And when she finally called, it was to tell me she agreed with Michael. She said she thought the guardianship was a good idea. She said she thought Riverbend was a good fit. She said, "Mom, you are not safe on your own." I hung up the phone. Then I sat in the gray chair in the gray living room, and I did not cry. I was too empty to cry. Amy was the only one who believed me. I called her that night after Karen hung up on me. Amy listened to everything. She did not interrupt. She did not tell me I was confused. She just listened. Then she said, "Mom, get out of that house. Come to San Francisco. I will take care of you." I said, "I cannot just leave." She said, "Yes, you can. You are not under guardianship yet. The hearing is in 2 weeks. Get in your car and drive to my house." I said, "What about the house in Lake Oswego?" She said, "The house is gone, Mom." I looked it up online. Michael transferred the title into a trust 6 months ago, a trust that lists him as the sole trustee. "You signed something." I said, "I did not sign anything." She said, "He must have forged your signature, or Rachel did. She is a real estate agent. She knows how to do that stuff." I said, "Oh my God." Amy said, "Mom, get in the car and drive south. Do not stop until you see the Golden Gate Bridge."
I did not drive to San Francisco. I should have, but I did not, because I was still hoping, I was still believing that if I went to the hearing and stood in front of the judge and told the truth, everything would be okay. That is the delusion of mothers. We believe our children will choose us. We believe that blood is thicker than money. We believe that love wins in the end. It does not. Money wins. Greed wins. The long, slow poison of watching your parents age and calculating what you will get when they die, that wins. Every single time. The hearing was on a Thursday. I wore a blue dress, my favorite dress, the one Bill bought me for our 30th anniversary. I put on my mother's locket. I brushed my hair. I wanted the judge to see that I was not a confused old woman. I was Diane. I was a wife. I was a mother. I was a grandmother. I was still a person. Michael and Rachel were there. Karen was there. Tom was there. They sat on one side of the courtroom. I sat alone on the other side. No lawyer. I could not afford one. Michael had frozen my bank accounts the day after he filed for guardianship. He had access because of the power of attorney I had signed. That piece of paper, that one stupid piece of paper, it gave him everything. The judge was a woman, maybe 50, short gray hair, reading glasses on a chain. She looked at the papers. She looked at me.
She looked at Michael. She said, "Mr. Mitchell, you are petitioning for full guardianship of your mother, Diane Mitchell."
Is that correct? Michael said, "Yes, Your Honor." He said it with such confidence, such certainty, like he was doing me a favor, like he was the hero of this story. The judge asked me if I had a lawyer. I said, "No, Your Honor." She asked if I wanted more time to get one. I said, "I cannot afford one. Your son has frozen my accounts." She looked at Michael. She said, "Is that true, Mr. Mitchell?" Michael said, "My mother has a history of impulsive spending. We are protecting her assets." The judge said, "I did not ask you that. I asked if you froze her accounts." Michael said, "We have power of attorney." The judge said, "That does not give you the right to freeze her access to her own money." Michael said, "We are following the advice of our attorney." The judge looked at the papers again. She rubbed her forehead. She said, "I am going to appoint a guardian ad litem to evaluate Mrs. Mitchell. That is a neutral third party. They will interview Mrs. Mitchell, review her medical records, and make a recommendation to this court. In the meantime, I am ordering that Mr. Mitchell restore access to Mrs. Mitchell's bank accounts within 48 hours. Do you understand, Mr. Mitchell?" Michael said, "Yes, Your Honor." But his face was red. Rachel was whispering in his ear. Karen was staring at the floor. I walked out of that courtroom feeling something I had never felt before. Not hope exactly, but something close. A small, warm ember in my chest. Maybe the judge would see the truth. Maybe the guardian ad litem would talk to me and realize I was fine. Maybe Michael would back down. Maybe my family would come back to me. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Patricia was a woman named Patricia. She was maybe 60. She came to Michael's house to interview me. Rachel made her coffee. Michael sat in the corner with his arms crossed. Patricia asked me questions for 2 hours. She asked about my childhood. She asked about Bill. She asked about my medical history. She asked about my finances. She asked about the house. I told her everything. I told her about the transfer of the Hawthorne property. I told her about the trust. I told her I did not remember signing anything. She wrote everything down in a small black notebook. Then she left. She said she would file her report in 10 days. 10 days later, I got a copy of her report in the mail. I read it in my room, the room that used to be Zoe's playroom, the room with the pink curtains and the stuffed animals on the shelf. Patricia's report said that I was competent. It said I showed no signs of dementia or cognitive decline. It said I was capable of making my own decisions. It said Michael's petition for guardianship should be denied. I cried when I read that. I cried because I had been right all along. I was not crazy. I was not broken. I was not a problem to be solved. But Michael did not accept the report. He filed an objection. He hired a second lawyer. He said Patricia was biased. He said she spent too little time with me. He said I had manipulated her. He asked for a new evaluation. The judge granted his request. That was when I knew. That was the moment the last little ember went out. I knew that no matter what I did, no matter what anyone said, Michael would keep fighting. He would keep spending money on lawyers. He would keep dragging me through the system until I ran out of fight. Because he had Rachel's income. He had the rental property. He had my house. He had everything. And I had nothing but a blue dress and a gold locket and the memory of a man who had loved me 42 years ago. I left that night. I waited until everyone was asleep, Michael and Rachel in their room, the kids in theirs. I packed a small bag, some clothes, my medications, my mother's locket, my checkbook, my ID. I walked out the front door at 2 a.m. I did not leave a note. I did not say goodbye. I got in my car, the same old Honda I had been driving for 12 years, and I drove. I drove south on I-5. I passed through Salem, Eugene, Roseburg, Grants Pass. I drove until the sun came up. Then I kept driving. I crossed into California. I drove past Mount Shasta, past Redding, past Sacramento. I did not stop until I saw the Golden Gate Bridge, just like Amy said. I called her from a rest stop outside of San Francisco. She answered on the first ring. She said, "Mom, where are you?" I said, "I am at the rest stop in Corte Madera." She said, "Stay there. I am coming to get you." Amy and Jess picked me up in Jess's Subaru. Amy hugged me so hard I could not breathe. She said, "You are safe now." I said, "I do not have any money." She said, "We will figure it out." I said, "Michael has everything." She said, "I know." I said, "Karen helped him." She said, "I know, Mom." I said, "They are going to come after me." She said, "Let them try." We went to Amy's apartment. It is a small place in the Mission District. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen the size of a closet,
a fire escape that looks out over the street. It was not the house in Lake Oswego. It was not the gray and white palace in the West Hills. It was mine. It was safe. It was the first time I had breathed freely in months. I got a lawyer in San Francisco. Her name is Elena. She is a pit bull in a cardigan. She specializes in elder financial abuse. She looked at my case and she said, "Diane, they are going to try to claim you left voluntarily. They are going to try to say you abandoned the property. They are going to try to make you look unstable." I said, "I do not care what they say. I just want my house back." Elena said, "We are going to have to fight in Oregon courts. That is going to be expensive." I said, "How expensive?" She said, $50,000, maybe more. I said, "I do not have $50,000. She said, "We will find a way." We did not find a way. Michael and Rachel had already drained most of my accounts. They had taken out a home equity line of credit on the Lake Oswego house. They had refinanced the rental property.
They had moved money into accounts I could not touch. By the time Alina got access to my financial records, I had less than $30,000 left. $30,000 from a life that had once been worth nearly $2 million. I cried when I saw the numbers. I cried because I was not crying for the money. I was crying for the years. The years I worked as a receptionist at the dental office. The years Bill worked double shifts. The years we saved and sacrificed and dreamed. All of it gone. Transferred and refinanced and siphoned away by the people I had nursed through fevers and chicken pox and broken hearts. By the people I had held when they were afraid of the dark. By the people I had loved when they were too small to love me back. Elena filed a lawsuit against Michael for financial elder abuse. She filed a separate motion to undo the transfer of the house. Michael's lawyer responded with a flurry of papers. They said I was a voluntary absentee. They said I had abandoned the property. They said I was mentally unstable. They attached a letter from a psychiatrist I had never met. A psychiatrist who said I exhibited signs of paranoia and delusional disorder. Michael had paid for that evaluation. He had sent the psychiatrist to interview me while I was still living in his house. I did not know the woman was a psychiatrist. I thought she was a social worker. She asked me questions for an hour. I answered them honestly.
And then she wrote a report that said I was paranoid and delusional because I believed my son was trying to steal my money, which was not paranoia, it was the truth. But the truth does not matter in court. What matters is who has the better lawyer. And Michael had the better lawyer, because Michael had my money to pay for him. The case dragged on for 18 months. 18 months of depositions and motions and phone calls with Elena. 18 months of waking up in Amy's guest room and not knowing who I was anymore. 18 months of watching the sunset from the fire escape and wondering if Bill could see me from wherever he was, if he was ashamed of me, if he was angry, if he was sorry he ever married such a stupid, gullible woman who let her own children eat her alive. I lost the house. The judge ruled that because I had left voluntarily and because Michael had been acting as my power of attorney with no formal revocation, I had abandoned the property. The transfer to the trust was upheld. The rental property was gone too. Michael had sold it 6 months into the lawsuit. He got $930,000. The judge said Michael had the right to sell it because he was the trustee, the trust that I did not know existed, the trust that I never signed, the trust that Rachel had typed up on her laptop and Michael had notarized with a friend of his who worked at a bank. I do not know how much Michael and Rachel ended up with.
Elena estimated around $2.3 million between the house, the rental property, the insurance money, and the IRA. $2.3 million that Bill and I built together. $2.3 million that was supposed to be my security, my peace, my dignity in old age. Gone. Taken by the people who called me mom, who called me grandma, who let Zoe climb into my lap and play with my locket while they were planning how to strip me bare. I did not get the locket back. I forgot it in the pink room. I forgot it on the nightstand next to the stuffed animals. I think about that locket every single day. I think about the picture of my parents on their wedding day. My mother in a white dress with flowers in her hair. My father in his army uniform. They looked so young, so hopeful. They had no idea that 60 years later their granddaughter would be living in a small apartment in San Francisco, with no house, no money, no future. They had no idea that their daughter would end up here. But here is the thing. I am still here. I am 71 years old, and I am still standing. I live with Amy and Jess. I sleep on a pull-out couch in the living room.
I wake up every morning to the sound of the BART train and the smell of sourdough from the bakery downstairs. I walk to the park every afternoon. I feed the pigeons. I talk to other old people. Some of them are homeless. Some of them are just lonely. Some of them are like me, mothers who trusted too much.
Wives who loved too long. Women who got eaten by their own blood and somehow survived. I do not talk to Michael anymore. He sent me a letter last year. He said he was sorry I felt the way I felt. He said he hoped I would come back for Christmas. He said the kids missed me. He said Zoe still asks about me. I burned the letter in the kitchen sink. Jess stood next to me and watched it turn to ash. She did not say anything. She did not need to. We both knew what the letter really said. It said I won. It said you lost. It said I took everything from you, and there is nothing you can do about it. I do not talk to Karen either. She called me on my birthday last month. I did not answer. She left a voicemail. She said, "Mom, I am sorry." She said I made a mistake. She said I was just trying to keep the peace. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Then I deleted it. Keep the peace. That is what she said. She stood by while her brother stole everything I had. She watched him drag me into court. She watched him call me paranoid and delusional. And she did it to keep the peace. Not my peace, his peace. The peace of not rocking the boat. The peace of not being the difficult one. The peace of being the good daughter while her mother drowned. Amy is the only one left. Amy and Jess. They are my family now. They do not have much money. Amy works at a nonprofit. Jess is a teacher. They cannot afford to take care of me forever. I know that. I am not stupid. I am just old.
I have started looking at senior apartments in the East Bay. Subsidized housing. The waiting lists are long. 2 years, 3 years. I might be dead by the time my name comes up. That is a strange thing to write. I might be dead. I might be gone. And Michael and Rachel will go to sleep in my house. In the house where Bill put in the bay window. In the house where I held my babies. They will lie in my bed. They will walk on my floors. They will look out my window at the garden where my mother's ashes are scattered. They will have everything. And I will have nothing but a pull-out couch and a view of a brick wall. I think about revenge sometimes. I think about driving back to Portland and walking into that house and setting it on fire. I think about calling a reporter and telling them the whole story. I think about hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on Michael and Rachel. I think about posting everything on Facebook and letting the whole world see what they did to me. But I do not do any of those things because I am tired. I am so tired. The kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. The kind of tired that lives in your bones. The kind of tired that comes from realizing that love is not real. That family is not real. That the people you gave your life to will eat your corpse while you are still breathing. I do not know how to end this. I do not have a neat bow to tie around it. There is no lesson. There is no redemption.
There is just an old woman in a small apartment in San Francisco who trusted the wrong people and paid for it with everything she had. I still fold towels the same way Bill taught me. Fold in half again, smooth out the wrinkles with the palm of your hand. I fold Amy's towels every Thursday when she is at work. I stack them on the bathroom shelf. I look at them sometimes, the neat white stacks, the perfect corners. And I think about that morning in the laundry room, the morning I heard the lock turn, the morning I stood there with a towel half folded and listened to my son lie to me in the basement. I should have walked down there. I should have opened the door. I should have demanded to know what he was doing. But I did not, because I was afraid of what I would find. And I was right to be afraid, because what I would have found was the end of my life. The end of everything I thought I knew about love and blood and the people who came out of my body. My mother used to say blood is thicker than water. She was wrong. Blood is just blood. It flows, it clots, it spills, it dries, and then it is gone, just like the people who had it, just like the house, just like the money,
just like the locket with the picture of two young people who had no idea what was coming for them. I am going to feed the pigeons now. They are waiting for me in the park. They do not care that I am old. They do not care that I am broke. They do not care that my children stole my life.
They just want the breadcrumbs, and I have breadcrumbs. That is the only thing I have left. Breadcrumbs for the pigeons, and a story that no one will believe, and a heart that is still beating, even though it does not have a good reason to. I will not say my children's names again after today. I will not say Michael. I will not say Karen. I will not say Rachel. I will not say Tom. I will say the dog I had when I was 10. His name was Buster. He slept on my bed every night. He licked my face when I cried. He never stole from me. He never lied to me. He never put me in a home. He was a better son than any son I ever had. And he died when I was 22, and I have been missing him ever since. I have been missing all the wrong things, all the wrong people, all the wrong love. The pigeons are here now. They are cooing on the windowsill. They are looking at me with their small red eyes. They are hungry. I understand hungry. I have been hungry my whole life, not for food, for something else, something I never got, something I will never get. Goodbye.